Hey guys, Waylon here. Real quick before we get started with the podcast, I just wanted to jump in here really fast and tell you guys thank you. I just checked the podcast this morning and we've actually reached right at 170 downloads. So to me, that is just super cool. And I just wanted to stop by and tell you thank you guys real quick. But I also just wanted to give you a little bit of an information as you go into this next podcast. This is part one of a three-part series. Yes, you heard me right. It's a three-part series. The reason it's so long is because I have one, two, three, I believe four guests on the show, including me. So five people at once, all talking and communicating. And so it could be a bit chaotic and it can also take a long time to get everybody's points across. So what I did was I broke this up into a three-part series. This series is on my friend's recent journey to South Africa. My friends being Zach, Tyler, Kelby, and Charla. So you guys are going to get to hear their testimony and their trip to South Africa and how it affected them and how it's going to impact their lives, and not only their lives but your lives as well. So you guys get to take part in this amazing journey, in this amazing testimony. But I just want to jump in here real quick and let you guys know that it's going to be a three-part series, and I highly recommend that you go and check out each and every part, because each and every part's going to have its own little details and it's going to unfold the story as it goes. And just one more thing for you guys who watch on YouTube. For those of you who watch on YouTube, this was my first time doing a real big production like this. So it definitely came with its learning moments, if you will. And we had a few moments where our cameras either died or had some problems. So there are some things that weren't caught fully on camera. So you'll still get to hear the audio, you'll still get to hear the voices, but you just might not get to see them on camera every time. I think episodes 1 and 2 were pretty good. It was just episode 3 where everything just started dying. But anyways, I'm not gonna take up any more of you guys' time. I'm gonna let you guys get to it. So I hope you enjoy episode 1 of this three-part series. See you guys. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the Pursuit of Veracity podcast. I've been trying to get started for the past 5 minutes now, but we just can't seem to make that happen. But finally, we're going to get rolling. The reason it's been so difficult is because I have a whole clan of people in here with me today. I have a group that was sent out to Africa, and I invited them on because I figured it'd be a good opportunity to get them all in here and talk about the trip and what they learned and what they seen, and all the details involving that. So I'll start with you, Zach. Zach, this is your first time being on the podcast.
Yes, it is. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, dude. I'll let you just kind of describe yourself a little bit, tell the people about yourself, and then we'll go from Zach over.
All right. Well, I'm Zach. I go to Kingdom Life Ministries, same church as Waylon. I work at an airport and also have a YouTube channel, and I'm a child of God.
Amen. Amen. Tyler, you want to introduce you? This is actually Tyler's second time on, but I'll let him introduce himself again.
I'm Tyler. Yeah.
It's good enough for me. And then Charla, you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Charla. I also go to Kingdom Life Ministries with Waylon and Zach. And this is my first time on Veracity Podcast, so this is exciting.
And then finally, we got Kelby. Kelby, go ahead and introduce yourself.
So my name's Kelby Robinson, and I'm Tyler's brother, and we've known Waylon for 12 years, 14 years.
Sounds about right.
No, close to that. So I'm very, very excited to be on the podcast today.
Appreciate you guys for showing up. It's going to be a bit chaotic. We're kind of a chaotic group, I guess would be a good way to put that. But just to jump right into things, when you're going to a trip like this, obviously there's what we call the calling, that draws you into these type of things. So Zach, this was your second time going.
Mhm.
Your first time, what was the thing that led you to want to go to Africa? What was that calling like for you?
Well, I remember when I was probably about 16, I remember seeing the videos of Igoli on Facebook.
Mhm.
And ever since I saw those videos, I just immediately fell in love with them and the people there and just the whole community. Even though I didn't know them or didn't know really anything about it, just seeing that on Facebook, seeing videos and pictures, I don't know what it was about it. I just fell in love with it and just knew one day I would want to go there, and didn't know when that would be, but was excited for that time when it came.
Mhm. And now for the rest of the crew, this is your guys' first time going. So Tyler, we'll start with you. What was that calling like for you? What was the moment that you knew, like, hey, I'm going to go to Africa?
I don't know. For me, it was a little different. We were originally supposed to go on a different trip, doing completely different stuff with different people, and then some of that stuff fell through. Some people ended up not being able to go, and so the trip just kind of changed for us. And then JJ was talking about having some work to be done and stuff that we could do while we were there. And I was like, well, the first one didn't work out. So she bumped it like a month or so out, and that didn't work out. So for me, it was more of, if this is what you want me to do, then make it happen.
Yeah.
So I just really wasn't worried about it or concerned with it. If it's what I'm supposed to be doing, then I knew that there'd be a way would be made to do it. And then the closer we got to going, the way was definitely made.
Yeah.
So I knew I was supposed to go, but maybe not on the first trip or the second one that we were planning on going. But for this trip, for sure, especially after going and all that we did, it's definitely I'm glad we didn't go on the first trip, because I feel like we probably wouldn't have been as effective as we were on this one.
Yeah. Charla, what about you?
So I don't know if you remember, but the last team that went from Kingdom Life Ministries last October, I feel like I was supposed to be on that trip.
Yeah.
And so this was like a moment of delayed obedience. I still felt that call to go, but there was definitely a struggle inside of me of, if like, is this God saying go and me like asking for my yes? Or is this me wanting to go just because I've always wanted to go? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We all feel a drawing to the nations, but sometimes it's hard to decide, is this just me wanting to go explore out of my own free will, or is this God saying, hey, come, I've got something for you to do?
Yeah. Kelby, what about you?
So for me, the call to Africa, this has not been just within the past couple years. For me personally, I've felt the call not just to South Africa as a country, but to the continent of Africa as a whole. So I've wanted to go, and not even, of course, me and Tyler, we spoke about this earlier today at our church. It's not necessarily a me go so I can go teach them something.
Yeah.
Because if we're going to be honest, the four of us, after this trip, we can look back at it and realize that they taught us stuff just as much as we taught them.
For sure.
And so it's not me wanting to go to the countries of Africa so that I can teach them something different. It's because I know there is a call on my life to go there.
Yeah.
And just like I said this morning, it's not just to go and give something from myself or from Holy Spirit through me, but it's so that I can receive something, because there's something in all 54 countries of Africa that needs to be birthed within me. There's a seed that needs to be planted within me. And so that is when we finally got the opportunity to go to South Africa. For me, it's not just, it's a fun trip that I can go be a part of. It's the first stepping stone or the first seed, if you will, being planted, the initiation of a season that I'm stepping into. So when given the opportunity, that's when I realized, yes, I've been, like what Charla was saying, I know I've been personally wanting to go to Africa. But when I looked at who we were going with, what we're going to be doing and stuff like that, I realized this is more than just something I want to go experience, but this is a call on my life for me to go and do what I can do. And at the same time, be poured into just as much, if not more, of what I'm pouring out.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that what you just said. Like you're gonna be poured into probably more than you're actually pouring out. Sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like people in the missionary work or that type of field, when they go out, they feel like they're going out just to pour out. But
Yeah.
something me and Miss Amanda were talking about a while back was that when you're going out to the nations, it's not just about you going out and pouring out or changing people's lives or you being like we mean Zach. Sometimes that can be taken as people putting themselves on a pedestal and being better than somebody else or something like that, some weird complex like that. But it's really that you're going to go out and it's not just going to affect the people there, but it's really going to affect you and the people back at home, wherever you're coming back to. But go ahead and move on. The preparation for a trip like this is probably something pretty big. It's not just a small trip down the road, going overseas like this. So how did you guys prepare for this trip? What was the things, not just in the physical, but in the mental as well and spiritual? How did you guys prepare for this? Zach, if you want to go first, anybody?
Well, I remember at the Sons meeting, Pastor Raymond specifically instructed us not to come to South Africa without praying for the people of South Africa. So that was one specific thing to help us prepare spiritually. You would think going over there, you'd want us to prepare for it. You'd think praying for us, praying for the team to go over, but no, he specifically said pray for the people there. And I think that's because you're praying for, I don't know, you're praying for the ground, I guess you're going to sow seed in. And so, yeah, that was just a big thing leading up to the trip, was praying for the people there, not just praying for us, but praying for the people there, praying that uh, they receive whatever we're coming to give, and they uh, give whatever we need to receive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Whoever wants to go next, jump in. Or I'm gonna call out names. Tyler, jump in.
Um, I think being prepared for it. I know in the past, most of we've been on trips to other places and stuff, and with another ministry, and the way they done things was a lot different than how we done it this time. And so, like they do a lot of fasting and praying and stuff. But it's like Zach was saying, the most of that was fasting and praying for us as a group, not for what we were going into, or um, the people we were going there for, or the things we were going there for.
Yeah.
And I think Pastor Raymond was right on with telling us that we needed to pray for the people of Africa. Um, if anything, praying for ourselves, we should have prayed that we'd be ready for it, because it was definitely, looking at it now after being and coming back, there's a lot of things I probably would have prayed differently or done differently in getting ready to go.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to prepare for something when you don't really know what you're preparing for.
Yeah.
But
Would you mind sharing something that you would change preparing for this trip?
Well, first of all, we've never flown before. This
Yeah.
is our first time. This is our first time getting on an airplane. So I've never even been in an airport. So my bag, I have a bag. You guys all know this, but I have a bag that goes everywhere with me pretty much,
Yeah.
and it's got all my stuff in it, and like things that I may need. And I was like, they're gonna take this from me if I try and take it on an airplane,
Yeah.
because there's all kind of stuff in that bag.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm not bringing guns and knives in the bag,
Yeah.
but like there was other stuff, medical supplies and stuff that I keep on me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, I feel like they're going to take this. So I took it out of my bag. And then after going through the airport and talking to Zach, who works at an airport, there's a lot of things that I left at home that I could have brought that we actually needed while we were there.
Yeah.
That would have been helpful. And just little stuff like that. And uh, just not really knowing what to expect. There's a lot of things that we done over there. I could have brought stuff from home would have made it a lot easier. Like some of the work we done, just a lot of things. Like there's a lot of stuff I could have brought on the plane that would have made the plane ride easier.
Yeah.
That I didn't know whether I could bring it or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was interesting.
So lessons learned, to say the least.
Lessons learned for sure.
Nice. Charla?
So I agree completely with what these guys have been saying. Prayer obviously should be our first method of preparation, but I think also remembering where your trust is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Remembering that Abba's gone before us. He's meeting us there. He's made a way for us, and he's the one who draws men. You know what I'm saying? So whatever we do, whether it's building houses, whether it's painting murals, whether it's ministering on a Sunday morning to these people, it's not us in ourselves, but it's he who lives within us. So
Yeah.
I think keeping that steadily before us as we prepared and as we embarked on the trip was something that was huge for me.
Mm-hmm. Kelby?
So, like Tyler was saying, with the previous mission trips we've been on, me and Tyler even had this discussion at one point before the trip. He's like, "So, are you planning on fasting before the trip?" And I was like, "I don't know. I haven't heard God tell me to fast for it."
Yeah.
And so, I'm a firm believer that you shouldn't just fast just so you're fasting.
Yeah.
You should be called to fast for something.
Yeah.
And so, thinking about it, I was like, man, this is every mission trip we've been on, we've fasted beforehand. So why would we not fast for this? And then a lot like what Charla's talking about, knowing where your trust is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to South Africa so that I can go to South Africa.
Yeah. Yeah.
God is calling me to South Africa. So he would not call me into danger.
That's good.
And even if he calls me into something that is dangerous, he would lead me through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you can quickly see this in the Bible where he tells the disciples, "Go to the other side and I will meet you there."
Yeah.
They get in the middle of the sea and the ship is getting tossed everywhere because of a storm and they're panicking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know growing up, for me, I've heard how they should have trusted the word that they were given. Go to the other side. When he says go to the other side and I will meet you there, he doesn't plan on leaving you there in the boat and standing on the shore and saying, "Well, where are they at?"
Mm-hmm.
He's going to see you through to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he calls me to South Africa, he's not calling me there so that I can fast and pray my way there and make sure that I stay safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because then who's really keeping me safe? Am I keeping me safe or is he keeping me safe?
Mm-hmm.
And so in saying that, am I saying fasting and praying is wrong? No. If you feel called to fast and pray for a trip that's coming up, you better fast and pray for that trip. There's a reason he's calling you to fast and pray.
Yeah.
But when he doesn't call you, we shouldn't just immediately kick into this mode of, well, it's a trip, so I should fast and pray for it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when things start turning religious.
Yeah, for sure. That's
It
what I was
goes from being something done in season and done by unction of Holy Spirit and into religious obligations. You're going somewhere, so you need to fast and pray. So when we had this discussion, I was like, I don't know. I haven't heard the Lord say to fast for this trip. So I don't know if I'm going to fast or not. And then with each passing week, I'm like, am I fasting this week? And then I wouldn't hear anything. And then the next week, am I fasting this week? And then we were like 3 days before leaving, and I was like, I haven't fasted and prayed for this trip. I prayed, but I haven't been like fasting and
Mhm.
praying
Yeah.
over the trip. And I was like, obviously the Lord doesn't want me fasting. Now, you already know I was sick for like half the trip. Most of the trip, I was sick.
Yeah.
We could easily say, well, if you would have fasted and prayed, you probably wouldn't have been sick.
Yeah. One might say.
But if I'd have stayed here in the States, I wouldn't have been fasting and praying anyway, so I'd have still been sick anyways.
Mhm.
So you have to have this mindset of trusting. If he calls you somewhere, then he will see you through it.
Mhm.
So knowing where your trust is at. My trust is not in me to fast and pray my way out of any situation.
Yep.
My trust is to lean on him, and he will lead me through, not pull me out of, but lead me through any situation.
Yeah. Can I just break this down a little bit and just see if you kind of get what you're saying? You're saying basically like, don't let the fasting and praying become the thing that you do just so you're protected, or some type of weird ritual that you do so that you're gonna be okay and that you're paving your own way in a more of less sense. I see,
Yeah.
because I felt like that's what you were kind of saying without saying it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree
And
with that
again,
for sure.
not that fasting and praying is a bad
Right,
thing.
right.
It's a really
Obviously,
good thing.
yeah, obviously it's great, but like you're saying, like don't use it as some type of weird ritual
Yes.
to just benefit yourself, really, because that's kind of what it boils down to. But more or less, you use it when you're called to do it. That's when you should do it.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that just boils down to being obedient.
Yep.
Are you listening to the Father and what He's wanting you to do, or are you just doing things out of a fear that He hasn't already, like you said, the trust? Are you really trusting Him, or are you not trusting in Him at all? So I thought that was really, really good. To move on to the third thing, so we talked about the calling, the preparation. Now we'll talk about the actual journey there, the physical journey there. Zach, I know you ran into some issues, some slight problems over there. You might,
Yes, I ran into a lot of issues going over.
Do you mind sharing with the crew
Sure.
kind of what happened?
So I fly standby, which means I only get on the plane if there's seats available. And so I had two options going over. I could go either on Delta from Atlanta to Cape Town, or I could go on United with them, which was, where'd y'all fly at? DC?
Jacksonville to DC.
DC to Cape Town. So I thought it'd be great to go with them. That'd be nice, keep us all together. But Atlanta was closer, and Atlanta had more seats available, and I was higher on the list. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna go with Atlanta to Cape Town. Well, it was what they call payload optimized. It was weight restricted, so there were seats available, but they wouldn't let people on the plane. So I didn't get on that flight. And so then it was I spent probably 2 hours trying to figure out what I was going to do next, and just trying not to like I don't know, get stressed out, trying to stay at peace, trying to be like, okay, cuz I was praying before then. I was like, if God wants me to get on this flight, he'll get me on this flight. If he doesn't want me to get on this flight, then there'll be another way. So so I waited, and then I ended up finding a cheap ticket, which is rare for a last minute. So I went ahead. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy this round trip ticket, so that way I don't have to worry about all the craziness trying to figure out if I'm going to get on the plane or not. So I got that cheap flight. The reason why it was so cheap is because the layovers were so long. So I ended up in Atlanta for 18 hours, and then I was in Boston for 12 hours, and then I was in Newark for 22 hours, and then I was on the plane for 15 hours. And then I finally made it to Cape Town. Yeah, and was able to join the group.
So quite a long trip, to say the least.
Yeah. But the amazing thing was that even though that was so crazy and chaotic, you think that would make me sick or exhausted. I got there, I was better off on this trip than I was on the first trip.
Really?
Yeah. Which was crazy, but I think it's because I had so many people praying for me. They knew I was going through a whole ordeal to get there, so I think the prayers helped a lot.
So I know you guys had your kind of own ordeals going on too. So would you guys explain kind of like your journey to South Africa? Start off with Tyler. Sure, that works for me.
It's all good. I wouldn't say it was ordeals per se.
Wasn't blessings.
What, Kev?
It wasn't blessings.
It wasn't blessings. I don't know. I thought it went pretty smooth getting there.
Yeah.
We definitely, especially compared to Zach, bless his heart. Man,
I don't think we could complain compared
yeah,
to
no,
Zach.
we can't complain about the
just doesn't feel right, does it?
It doesn't. It
No,
doesn't.
not at all. Man, it was pretty smooth though. We for us, we just had to drive, which Charla drove to Jacksonville from
Mhm.
here, and then we parked the car at Josh and Brianna's place.
Yep.
And he drove us to the airport, and he didn't find out that me and Kelby have never flown before until we were pulling in for us to get out of the car. And he's
At
like,
the
you
airport.
guys know where to go and all that stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna be honest, me and Kelby's never been on an airplane or in an airport before.
He hit the
And
brakes.
so he
He's like,
yeah.
wait, what?
He's like, wait a minute. And so then he was like giving us a quick, and I mean quick walk through,
Very quick.
because there's like this guard that's trying to shoo us
Yeah.
from the where he was parked to let us out, and he just runs through it all quick, and so I'm trying to remember all this so that it's as smooth as possible. But yeah, he described it perfectly.
Yeah.
Because going off of what he said, everything was
Yep.
super smooth,
Hmm.
and just done exactly what he said to do. And thankfully for us, we ended up getting super nice people at the
Yes.
airport.
Yes.
Even the TSA
Really?
agents,
Yeah.
super nice. I was
Yep.
because we've never flown before, and we've heard some bad stuff about TSA.
Yep.
Mm.
And so when we get back there, and these people are smiling, and they're like this way, or and we have no idea what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Dumb
they were
Americans.
very understanding and very nice about it. But our first flight was pretty short,
Yeah.
so it was like an hour and 40 minutes, I think.
Mm. To DC.
Yeah. So, and that was our first time ever getting on an airplane, so it was pretty
Yes.
cool.
Mhm.
And it was a smaller plane, and we joked about our dad being in the cockpit because of the way he was because of the way he was driving. It was a little rough on the landing.
Mm.
Yeah.
And we were like, "Yep, that'd be how our dad done it." But yeah, it was pretty cool. We I don't know how it is for Kelby, but I enjoy flying. That was really cool, taking off and flying. Once you actually get in there, you don't really see much, but
Yeah.
the takeoff and the descent is pretty cool. You get to see all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
and just flying in general. It's kind of like being in a car. You're just going a lot faster.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so like turbulence really just feels like you're on a road. It's
Yeah.
got a bump or something.
Just
Mm.
faster.
Just faster.
Just
yeah.
faster. A lot faster.
But then we had like a super short layover on our first,
Oh, really?
our between our first and second flight.
Yeah.
I think it was like 2 hours, maybe. And that's landing to taking off. So anybody that's flown knows it takes a while to get off the plane. It takes
Yeah.
a while to get on the plane. So like we hit Chick-fil-A and inhaled that real quick, and then jumped on this plane for, I think that one was like what, 14 hours? That was a long flight.
Yeah.
But we didn't have to we didn't have to sit around like Zach. And then when we got off in Cape Town, it was, I think if anything that I was the most concerned about, it was getting there, because their airport's different, and that's what they told us.
Mm.
The way that you get off the plane is a little different than if you were in the States.
Yeah.
And just the way that their airport works. So I was just kept reminding myself of what Josh said and how to do it, and what JJ had told us beforehand. They were both super detailed about it, and it was, I'm glad, because I wouldn't have really known what to do had they not told us.
Mhm.
And but everything was super smooth. They just waved us through. We didn't have to get surprise checked or anything like that. We just walked right on out there.
Mm. Would any of you two add anything different to how Tyler described the journey?
For me personally, so I'm not the biggest fan of heights.
Gotcha.
So I knew this plane is going to be quite high.
Just slightly.
Not to mention, again, like Tyler said, we haven't been on planes before, but we've heard people talk about it.
Mhm.
So, like, turbulence, big thing that people like to talk about. Also, the takeoff and the landing is
Yeah.
a big thing that people like to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, dear Lord, I hope this is not a terrible experience. So like we've told several people beforehand how we've never flown. And they're like, you need to fly somewhere here in the States before you go on this trip to make sure you can fly. I'm sitting there thinking, I've done booked the ticket. What am I going to get a refund on that? That's not happening.
Yeah.
And so I was like, nah, it'll be okay. So that first plane from Jacksonville to Washington, we got on there and sat down. And it wasn't until we were like driving in the car with Josh to the airport, I was like, it hit me. I'm about to get on an airplane, and there is no telling how this is about to go. And then within like a minute or two, I was like, it doesn't matter because God has called us to Africa, and He's not going to call us there for something to happen on this plane. And so, like, immediately, that feeling of, oh my God, what's going to happen, just like vanished. And so then we get on the plane and we're sitting there for way too long, in my opinion. And then we finally start going. And so, like, you're sitting in the airplane, and where we sat was like really close to the wing and the engine. And so, like, you hear it before you start feeling it. They start turning on the engines and really start like kicking them up. And then it's like, oh shoot, here we go. And then you start feeling it because it's like your body doesn't want to move, but the plane has somewhere to be, kind of thing. So it's like, I'm not gonna make noises, but
Please do. I would
no,
quite enjoy that.
no. But like it just starts pulling you, kind of, and so then you pick up and get into the air, and then they start like turning almost automatically. And you can see the ground, and like I'm the kind of person that I don't like rides that much.
Yeah.
That like leave the ground, mainly because I don't like looking down and seeing the ground so far away.
Right.
And so I'm looking out this window, and not only am I looking out the window to an ungodly height from the ground, but it's not even a level height from the ground.
Yeah.
He's turning this thing, and so we're banking, and I'm looking straight down at the ground. I'm like, this isn't how you're supposed to be. So within that first couple of minutes of flying, you start kind of getting your bearings about you and realizing, okay, this plane's not going to just fall out of the sky. And so one thing that was very helpful is something that we heard Josh say at the Suns gathering. He was talking about planes are literally built to withstand turbulence. And so anytime there was a slight bump in the plane, I just heard that again in my head.
Yeah.
Planes are literally built to withstand turbulence.
Yeah.
That is their purpose, is to make sure that they can withstand turbulence. Meanwhile, everyone freaks out when turbulence happens. And so knowing that, going into it, knowing that, it was way easier to just, anytime we hit turbulence, which was a couple different times. It wasn't.
You didn't sleep through.
Yeah. There was times where we would hit turbulence, and like some people would be like, oh shoot, here's turbulence, and it starts shaking the plane. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, it's just turbulence. And Tyler describes it very well. It's like if you're riding down the road and you hit something, or you hit a speed bump or something like that, just faster, and a little bit longer. And so it was very quickly on into that first flight. I was like, you know what, flying ain't that bad. It's not as bad as people describe it to be. So, yeah.
Well, arrival into Africa. What were your initial thoughts? Zach, you had the longest trip to get there. When you finally got there, what was your initial thought? And this is your second time being there too. So, was it any different than the first time dropping into Cape Town?
Yeah, I think it was a little bit different. I wasn't going into it surprisingly as exhausted as I was the first time, which was interesting. And then I also wasn't going into it not knowing what to expect. I had been there, I'd been in the airport before, been in Cape Town. So that was nice, kind of going into it kind of knowing what to expect, kind of having a good idea of the land, good experience, I guess. So yeah.
Tyler, what about you? Initial thoughts?
I think I was pretty excited, despite being slightly concerned about the airport, because didn't really know how it was going to go. But at the same time, I didn't know how the flight was going to go, kind of like Kelby was saying. But it really, for me, it just goes back to being called,
Yeah.
like we talked about earlier. Because I know everybody probably looks at it a little bit different, but if he calls you somewhere, he calls you from there.
Yep.
So he's not here calling you to Africa.
Calling you
He's
there.
already there, just asking you to come with him to be a part of what he wants to do.
Yeah.
So if he's asking me to come and be a part of what he wants to do, and even going for me, it's not. It's like kind of like Kelby was saying. It's not necessarily I'm going to bring them something or I'm going to get something. The Father is there, and He's wanting to do something through Holy Spirit, and He wants you to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Not just for those people, but for the people that get to the opportunity, like we've had, to be able to go. So he's got this plan, and he said, I want this person and these other two people to be a part of what I'm going to do here.
Yeah.
And to release and also receive all at the same time. So he's calling us there, but he's calling us from there. So for me, I wasn't really like on the plane. I wasn't concerned about any of that stuff. Like Kelby was saying, it wasn't. I was thinking about the trip.
Yeah.
Even though I didn't know what to expect, I was thinking about the trip. Going through the airport, landing in Cape Town, that was pretty cool. Because when we got on the plane, you walk down this little hall to load into the plane. And so when we got off the first plane, we took the same kind of hall, just like a
loading chute or
off-ramp,
whatever.
yeah. But when we get to Cape Town, like we land out in the middle of what looks like a field, and the building is way across from where we're at. So they're like, we're going to have to put stairs out, and you guys are going to go down those, and we're going to shuttle you to the airport. So it was cool. Just getting to drive that. They got these cool little buses that you get on.
Yeah.
And but the whole time I wasn't concerned with what was going on. Dang, man. I wasn't concerned with what was going on or what was in front of us. I was concerned with the trip. I was thinking about the trip, what was going to be done, what he wanted, and trying to be receptive of what he wanted. So for me, it was an enjoyable experience. It was all pretty cool.
Yeah. Charla, what about you? Initial thoughts landing?
So this was my first international flight, aside from like I was in Mexico for something right after I graduated, but it was nothing in comparison.
Yeah.
I think just as soon as we got off of the plane, down the stairs and onto the what's it called? Tarmac? Is that what it's called? Awesome. It was just immediate wonder. Sorry. I was just happy I knew the word. Just immediate wonder of being in this new place with this new experience with these guys that are like super close, like they're practically my brothers is what it feels like. And then like Abba's in the midst of that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it was just like super cool, I guess.
Kelby?
So everything they just said. Getting there and actually putting your feet on the ground. It's amazing. Even just flying in, because again, they have specific things that they have to do, so they don't just bring that plane in and land it immediately. They have to circle around a little bit, and so as they're circling and they're banking, you're looking out the window and you can see Cape Town and the surrounding area because you're so high up.
Yeah.
And so even before we were landed, we're getting an aerial view of Cape Town. And we're getting to see things from an elevated standpoint of what we're about to be experiencing.
Yeah.
And so even that was amazing. And then actually landing, and a lot like what they were talking about, going through the actual experience of now you're finally in Cape Town. One thing that stood out to me was you could go somewhere, even be called somewhere and go somewhere, and know Abba is with you. But for me, when we came through customs and all that, or whatever we went through, I don't know. When we came through and we got to where, like, pretty much you get past all of the security and now you're just in the airport and you're about to leave.
Mhm.
We came out of there and we saw JJ. And so it's one of those things where you see a familiar face.
Yeah.
And so you're like, okay, it's not just us,
Mhm.
which we knew JJ was going to be there.
Right.
But up until this point, we had not been around anyone we knew since Josh dropped us off
Yeah.
at the doors of the airport
Yeah.
in Jacksonville. And so it's like, here's someone we know. And you have this realization of, okay, the trip's about to start.
Yeah.
It's not just, okay, here's someone you know, and now you got a couple days to just sit around and get your bearings about you. But it's like, now it starts. Now is when it is starting.
Yeah.
Which we joked around and said it restarted 2 days later when Zach finally got there.
Yeah.
It's like, man, now it feels like the trip's actually starting because the whole team is here.
Mm-hmm.
But like just coming around that corner and going through that door and seeing JJ there, and then she's like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you guys are actually here."
Mm-hmm.
It made everything very surreal in that moment because you look around and it's obvious this is not America. And so it's like you're actually in South Africa. And all of this travel that even though you're sitting on this plane for 14 hours and your butt went numb 2 hours into the flight,
Yeah.
it made all of it completely worth it. And
Yeah.
this is before we've done anything.
Mhm.
So
Can somebody? I don't know if it's even really possible. Can somebody explain who JJ is a little bit, just so the viewers know who that is in somewhat of a detail?
So JJ is Apostle Dave's oldest daughter.
Mhm.
Apostle Dave is the headship over the pastors Larry and Becky Owens of Kingdom Life Ministries.
Right.
So we've known her like since we did camps back at God's Vineyard, which is over 10, 15 years ago now at this point.
Yeah.
So honestly, like an old family friend is kind of what it feels like, or an
Mhm.
old like a big sister, or older cousin that you look to like a big sister.
Yeah.
Super uh my brain just went blank, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're all good.
So super talented as far as musically, and she's got a incredible gift for like management in that she delegates and stuff gets done.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
she basically, like, you dream it, tell JJ about it, she'll get it done,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
And she's really incredible with that. So she's creating this life change travel. I don't
Mhm.
know if you've seen it on Instagram
I
or
have.
whatever, but it is on Instagram if you want to go check it out. So we were kind of almost like the pilot experience for the first
Yeah.
South Africa expedition through life change travel.
Yeah. And so she was pretty much almost like your guys' guide in a sense, some way.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say team lead.
Team lead. That might be
Yes,
a good
that's a
name
good
for it.
one,
It sounds a
yeah.
little bit more professional too.
Yeah.
So the first few days you guys were there, sounds like you guys got to do a little bit of kind of familiarization with South Africa, or specifically Cape Town, and that surrounding area. So, what all did you guys get to do and see? Kelby, we'll start off with you since Zach was a little late getting in. So, what was the first things y'all kind of got to do and go see there?
So first we left the airport and we were all sad that Zach was not there. This sounds fake, but JJ literally said within 15 minutes of us being in the car, "Man, I wish Zach was here already." And so at this point, we did not know when he was going to be there
Mm.
because he all he said was, "Guys, I've missed my flight." And so it's like, oh shoot, when is he going to? Had you said
I think I said a lot more than that in the message, but that's okay.
you had not said when you were going to be there?
I think I did,
Oh,
but okay.
Just lost in translation.
Sorry.
Anyways,
Don't worry about it.
so at this point, we knew he wasn't going to be there for a while.
Yeah.
We'll put it that way. And so JJ's like, man, he's going to miss so much. So first day we went and literally all we done was leave the airport go to where we were going to be staying for the night and dropped all of our luggage off. And then we left there and we went to we went to a chemist in South Africa. And so a chemist is not necessarily like we would expect a pharmacist to be. But we would call this person a pharmacist in America. So you go into this store and there is, looks like all of it was behind the counter drugs. But you go in this store and it's like a tiny store, no bigger than this room, or maybe a little bit big. It was about as wide as this room. But you go in there and like JJ's like, "Is the chemist in today?" And the lady behind the desk is like, "Yeah, he's right back there." And so we walk down there, and it's this dude dressed in normal clothes. He's like, "What can I do for you?" And so I had this cough. What was it? 2 or 3 weeks leading up, 3 weeks leading up to this trip. I had this cough that had not went anywhere. I had tried like 5 different medications, and it was like one day it would be easing up, and then the next day it would not. And so like it was this back and forth. And so Josh on the way to the airport said, "You need to go to the chemist because he'll be able to give you something to get rid of this cough." So when we get there, JJ hears the cough. She's like, "You need to go to the chemist." So we went to the chemist. This dude, he asked me a couple questions, or I was telling him, JJ was telling him what was going on with me, and then he looked at me. He said, "Has it made you tighten the chest?" I said, "A little bit." He's like, "Okay." He said, "Has it changed your voice any?" Which was something I was planning on telling him.
Yeah.
Because, like, I've told you about it, and I told everyone else beforehand about it, how it had done from coughing so much, it had messed my voice up. And, like, much higher than my speaking voice, I couldn't make a sound any higher than my normal speaking voice.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Yeah, it has." And he said, "Yeah, you've got laryngitis." And so like he turns around and just starts grabbing like 4 and 5 different medications. And he's like, "I'm going to get you some medicine, and I want you to mix it all in water and just make like a cocktail." He said, "And this will take care of it within 10 days. The trip's a 10-day trip." So I'm here and I'm about to have to take medication
For
the whole
10 days.
trip. I was like, "Good Lord." And so get the medication, and then we leave there, go eat some tacos at this place, like right around the corner, and then went and spent the night at the place we were staying. I won't go into the next morning because that's not my story. But then the next morning we get up, we go to a 2-day safari.
No, before that we went to the chemist again, and that's my story.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and interrupt that.
Okay.
So that night I had ended up waking up at 1 a.m. Partial jet lag, partial because my eyes were killing me.
Yeah.
Pain, burning, they were warm to the touch. So I get up that next morning after going to sleep at like 4 a.m. to a knock on my door because I had snoozed my alarm, and it's like 8:44, and JJ had said we wanted to leave by 9. So I was like, "Oh snap, I've got to get myself up, ready, and get my stuff packed to go," because we were about to go to the safari like Kelby was saying.
Yeah.
So I get up and I go walk out of my room, which is just off the little dining room. And I'm like, "Guys, can we make another trip to the chemist?" And they all look at me like, "What? Why?" And immediately see why.
Very obvious one.
Both of my eyes had swollen and were red and were super disgusting, honestly. And I ended up with an eye infection in both eyes. So we get to the chemist. I get a cocktail of several different things, which it's fine because it made it feel better almost immediately.
Yeah.
And it brought the swelling and the redness and everything down and all that. So we were good to go on our safari. Do you want to continue
So
that?
we went on a 2-day safari.
Just a little detour.
Medication in tow.
Yeah.
So
2 of us being drugged up. The other 2 feeling just fine.
Yeah.
We done the first day, literally got there, done lunch. And again, this sounds like it's a joke, but all 4 of us can testify. We sat there after lunch and was like, man, we wish Zach was here. And so by this time we realized, definitely, I don't know exactly when, but definitely by this time we realized he's not getting here until Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Tuesday night? Thursday night.
Thursday night.
Thursday night. Thursday evening. And so we were like, he's going to miss this whole safari and everything that we do here.
Mhm.
And so then it was like, it's a safari, so you have fun,
Yeah.
but in the back of your mind, you're like, the whole team's not here. And so we're not actually having as much fun as we should be having because
yeah.
the whole team's not here.
Yeah.
And so we experienced the safari for 2 days, which it was like we got there in the afternoon one day and left the afternoon the next day. We spent the night there.
Mhm.
Left there and then drove all the way back to Cape Town where we met up with Pastor Raymond
Mm.
and had an amazing time spending time with him and the ladies that cook food
Mm.
there with Pastor Raymond.
Real quick, can you describe who Pastor Raymond is? Real quick?
Pastor Raymond is the best and biggest ball of energy the kingdom has ever seen. Pastor Raymond on the regular feeds about 700 people
Yep.
in the communities around there
Mhm.
any given day.
Yep.
Anytime he can cook, anytime he gathers enough money to get enough food to cook, he's cooking for about 700 people.
Yeah.
And so these ladies that's there with him, he is like leading a ministry, an outreach ministry there, but at the same time, they're there helping. And what
Mhm.
was interesting is we're sitting in this room with about 7 women,
Yep.
each one from a completely different church.
Really?
You would not see this in America.
No, that's kind of rare.
But each one was from a completely different ministry, but they come together to help Pastor Raymond from a completely different ministry.
Yeah.
To put together food for people that are in these townships and settlements that cannot afford it.
Yeah.
And so that is, in a nutshell, in a very, very small, minute way to describe Pastor Raymond. We could have a whole podcast
Oh,
about
for
Pastor
sure.
Raymond, and we still wouldn't cover everything that is Pastor Raymond.
Yeah.
But we met up with him for a little bit, and then was able to leave from there and go to his house and talk with him and his wife for a little bit. And thankfully, right after that, we went and picked up Zach. And Zach joined the trip.
Finally made it. Charla, what about you? Sightseeing and all. What was that like for you? How did you enjoy it?
Yes, with my sunglasses on, so I didn't ruin photos. Yes.
Still heavily medicated.
Still heavily medicated.
That's how we enjoyed it.
But it was really cool. I also got to experience it in a different sort of way because Alicia, who's also a teacher in the area,
Mhm.
had sent with us a flat Stanley. And if you don't know what that is, it's a little story about this little paper doll that goes and travels across the globe. So her students made these cute little paper dolls, and one of them got sent with me to go to South Africa with us.
I see.
So just kind of taking in the sights and then trying to assimilate it kind of in my brain to send back stories for the
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
I think it was a great way to kind of see it in a childlike aspect,
Yeah, for
in
sure.
that wonder and awe of seeing a lion close enough that I could reach out and touch it. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So that was really cool.
Mhm. Tyler, what about you?
What's the question?
Sightseeing. Initial sightseeing at all. What was your thoughts
Before
about the sights?
before
and
Zach got there.
the thing? Yeah, before Zach gets there, you gotta go
Yeah.
see the town and all.
We were definitely missing Zach.
Mhm.
I think all of us were equally.
Zach, you are loved if you didn't know.
I didn't realize so much.
It's one of those things where even though we weren't necessarily doing things that he was needed for, I guess you'd say, it was still, it just wasn't like there was something missing
Mhm.
with him not being there.
Yeah.
Because we were all supposed to be there. For me, that's the part of the trip that I wasn't really looking forward to the most.
Really?
I think. Yeah, I'm just weird, man. I was definitely looking forward to the work part,
Yeah.
going in
I can
and
see that.
doing something. I'm just not a go enjoy myself kind of guy most of the time,
Yeah.
and so especially on like a trip like this, I was like, why are we going and doing this stuff when we can be doing
Yeah.
something productive?
Yeah.
And that was my mentality going into the trip as far as the sightseeing stuff went. But post sightseeing and going into everything else, I think, and it's something that I talked about while we were there. I think JJ had a vision of what she wanted it to be like,
Yeah.
not just for us, because we're like they were saying, we're the first ones in this life change.
Yeah.
You know, we're like the guinea pigs,
Yeah.
or the pioneers. That's
Pilot
what we were
episode.
called.
The master
We were-
is the pilot.
yeah, the pilot. Yeah. So we were. It was like
The best
this whole trip
guinea
was
pigs any
Yeah,
guinea pig could be.
yeah. We talked a lot about this being a pioneering trip, and
Yes.
because there was a lot of the things we done on this trip was the first time any of that's ever been done
Really?
there.
Yeah.
I'll save that for
Yeah.
later in the
Yeah.
podcast, because I know you probably got more questions.
Oh yeah,
So.
tons.
But for me, the sightseeing was great for sure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it, getting to see all the animals and see Cape Town and explore.
Yeah.
Just have a good time. That was cool.
Were you done?
Yeah, sure.
Kelby, interject.
Sorry. We could very easily take this and say, I thought y'all were going there on a ministry trip. Why are y'all going on safari?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie. I was asking the same questions to myself at the same time. I'm sitting here thinking, we're going to Africa. I want to go on a safari.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had this wrestle within myself. But if we would not have went on this safari, something that JJ said while we were there would not have even been said. So we went to this safari, and it's a small game reserve. It's a private reserve.
Yeah.
And they have taken their lions out of the main enclosure and put them in their own enclosure because they had them out there to begin with. But what happens when you have caged animals in with a lion?
Yeah. They're gonna get eaten.
They're going to get eaten.
Yeah.
And so they were like, the lions was killing off all of the animals.
Yeah.
And so we had to put them in their own enclosure.
Mm-hmm.
The word enclosure is a good, beautiful word for they had a fence around the lions.
Yeah.
And we went out there one day and literally had to go through a gate, an electric fence, and all that just to get out there to where the lions were. And then we saw the lions, and we have these beautiful pictures of these lions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went back that looked almost dead. And then we went back, we slept. Then we went for a morning drive and went to see the lions again after we saw different animals.
Yeah.
They took us back through there where the lions were. And the lions are in the exact same spot, laying down almost in the exact same positions. And we're sitting there, and you've got all these people that's in this truck.
Yeah.
And they're taking their pictures. And thankfully we're there with JJ. And JJ, I was able to ask JJ a couple of questions while we were riding around. And I asked her how many parks she's been to, and she said she done the math. She's like, I think around 8.
Yeah.
She said, but I've been on countless safaris. I couldn't even begin to start counting them.
Yeah.
And so she's very experienced in this.
Mm.
And then we get around there to the lions, and she's sitting there, and I can see it on her face that she is not having a great time.
Yeah.
With this experience. And then she's looking over the edge at the lions, and then she just sits back, and like everyone else is just like, oh my God, it's lions.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We could reach out and touch them. And JJ's like, she just starts shaking her head. And then we start driving off because obviously they're not going to sit there for an hour.
Yeah.
But we start driving off, and JJ's like, that's not a lion. I was like, dang, that's very bold of her to say. She said, that's not a lion, because if that was a real lion, that male wouldn't want us this close to his females.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dang. Because then it hit me because growing up, I used to watch a lot of Animal Planet.
Yeah.
So I know exactly what she's talking about. This lion, we're like hanging over the edge taking pictures. This lion, the male lion, is just laying there, not even looking at us. He's not concerned. His ears are not sticking up. Like he is completely relaxed.
So they've been domesticated pretty much.
Just about it.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting there thinking, we have this mindset of, oh, we go and see a lion in the zoo and we're like, man, that's a neat animal. I
Mhm.
wish I could go see one in Africa.
Yeah.
And then you go to Africa, and a lot of the people on this truck was probably thinking, "Oh my God,
Real
it's a
African
lion
lions.
in
Yeah.
Africa. This is amazing."
Yeah.
But I got to thinking about it, and I later told JJ about this. I said, "It's interesting. I used to think the same thing
Mhm.
about lions in Africa, and then getting here and realizing this lion is in Africa, but it's not at home.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's completely different being somewhere that it was geographically supposed to be,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it is far from home
Yeah.
because it is in this tight little enclosure. Was the enclosure huge? Yes. They have plenty of space,
Mhm.
but there's a fence
Yeah. And they're getting fed too.
and they're getting fed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it can be where it's supposed to be and
Mhm.
still not be at home.
Yeah.
And I was like, so then I'm sitting there riding all the way back to the lodge, sitting there thinking, dang, this lion is in Africa and it's still not home.
Yeah.
This experience wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have went on, because you can quickly take that and turn that spiritual.
Oh yeah, for
And
sure.
you can go to church.
That's immediately what I was thinking. Yeah.
You can go to your four walls
Mhm.
of a church and be in your enclosure.
Yep.
And be in the kingdom
Mhm.
and still not be in the kingdom.
Yeah.
Still not be at home.
Yeah.
And so just that experience, just that small portion of the safari made me realize there's more to it than just we're going to see some animals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like just the building the relationship between us three and JJ while we were there speaks volumes.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's all I had.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. I was thinking about that. It's crazy that you brought that. I was thinking about that earlier today. Is how we can be in, you know, parentheses church, and by saying that I mean like a building, which isn't really church. It's just a building. The church is the people. But anyway, you can be in the building and think I'm in the kingdom.
Yeah.
But like if your heart's not there and like your spirit, you're not like there, not there in your spirit. Like, then where are you really? You're not really home, but you're in the place, but you're not in the place. If that makes any sense. So I like how you described that. And that was immediately what I was thinking when you were describing the lions. I was like, man, they sound like they're just domesticated cats. They're like, because they don't have to go anywhere. So it's almost like we just went on a trip too. While you guys were going, we went to Montana as well, and we will describe. We'll get into that whole debacle later. Onward, onward. Uh, Me and my family got to go on a hunting trip to Montana, but we actually passed through some reservations, and one of the things they struggle with in the reservations is extreme poverty. Some of the people, when they get a certain amount of money, and sometimes it's really not good for them because it leaves some people unmotivated, unfortunately. And so sadly enough, some people fall into deep poverty because it just lack of motivation, to be honest with you, some of these people. And it was sad to see that. And that's what it kind of reminded me of. The lion's not different than many other people in this world. And it's easy to find a place of comfort and remain in that place because well, at least I'm going to survive here. And instead of thriving, you're just surviving on a day-to-day basis. So thought that was pretty interesting. But we're actually an hour deep into this. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to stop this at a part one right here, but we're going to continue on our conversation throughout on. But this is going to be the end of our part one. So if you guys would stay tuned, I'm going to drop part two very, very soon. So I'll pick up with you guys on that one.